When I was hired as a science teacher last year, one of the classes I inherited was an ESL biology class. Tenured teachers saw this type of class as something to graduate from. In this particular class, 12 different languages are spoken among 17 students. I had a problem in that I only spoke English. I felt unqualified to handle such a group. How could I help my students grasp the highly specialized and technical language of science taught in English? I wondered, as a science teacher not trained in ESL, was my focus to be on language and culture or science content? I first started by arranging my students' seats so that they were paired with someone who spoke a different language. I came up with this idea from a conversation I had with a co-worker who told me that while traveling through Italy, she was assigned a room with women from other countries. While none could speak the other's language, they were all able to speak broken Italian. It was their common bond. In pairing my students, would they choose to use English as a common bond to communicate in the classroom, and consequently, English language skills? My students had a completely different idea of how this classroom was going to run. As a result of the pairing, I noticed resistance with my Latina girls and Indian boys. They kept rearranging their seats to be closer to their friends. April kept questioning me. "Oh, miss, why do we have to do this? I don't want to sit here." However, there was one set of students that I grouped together that never complained. They worked well together and used English to explain science concepts to each other. I was confused. I had a group that was segregated and liked being that way. The others hated it. I wondered why they acted the way they did. I decided to create a survey about the students' seating assignments. In Andrea's survey, for instance, she said that she wanted to sit near her friends because they spoke the same language and they could help each other by translating vocabulary and concepts to each other when they didn't understand. As a result of the survey, I regrouped the students again, but I still didn't segregate them. This time, I regrouped them so that they sat with one person from their own culture and two people from another culture. However, I still kept the one successful group together, since in their surveys they were happy with their grouping and asked to stay together. I encouraged my students to socialize with each other within the classroom. It was my hope that my students, like the women in my co-worker's story, would build a common bond based on difficulties of learning science in another language, but I don't think that ever happened. While I still hear, "Oh, miss," from Abril, it's now less of a protest and more of a joke. Now my students better accept each other for who they are. They found a way to facilitate the learning of science. My teaching of ESL students is as much about my need to change as it is theirs. They have already made the most difficult change by immigrating to the United States. I started off wondering if my role was to teach my ESL students English as well as science. What I realized was that it was not the only question. I have to change the way I approach teaching these students also. Every new class will present new challenges, and I, as a science teacher, need to stay flexible in the way I teach concepts to each group. Maybe I'll have to get a classroom with movable chairs.